Our next guest is from Australia. She is Karine Shellshear. She comes from a background of social research, planning, policy and community development, an advocate of social justice. She has a Master's of Philosophy in Housing. She has been a teacher in higher education and was president of Australasian Association of Yoga Therapy. She is trained in the tradition of Krishnacharya and remains a student of Dr. N. Chandrasekhan and Saraswati Vasudevan. She presented a paper on the use of chakras in yoga therapy at the International Yoga Therapy Conference in Japan in 2018. She's teaching synchronized breath focused yoga, incorporating guidance for a calm mind, strengthening and revitalizing the body and restoring the whole system.
Greetings. Namaste to everyone, and thank you, Dr. Vikram, for the amazing job you're doing in bringing people together all around the world. I feel very honoured to be invited to speak on Ahimsa and peaceful coexistence. In the time ahead, I hope to do justice to this amazing topic. It's a lot more, the more I looked into it, it was a lot more profound than I had imagined when I began. And I think as I say namaste, what I'd like to do is to highlight that if we respect the divine within, then Ahimsa is a matter of being what we are rather than doing to anyone or anything. We can say we are all part of the divine. However, we also need to be able in this life to respect the boundaries that define us from others. If we recognize ourselves and others as we truly are, then Ahimsa follows, as do all the 5 yamas and niyamas. Not to hurt, not to be untruthful, not to steal, to keep pure, not to covet that which doesn't belong to you. Similarly, in cultivating your own nature, we have 5 components of self-care. Cleanliness, santosha, an attitude of contentment, tapas, self-discipline, svadhyaya, self-reflection, ishvara pranidhana, reverence to the divine within. Ahimsa is number 1. It's the spine that threads inward and outward moral conduct, uniting each thoughtful consideration together. And it begs us to question, what is the correct action? What is our duty to self and to others? Every choice, as we know, has a consequence. Every action has a reaction, not just karma, but a law of physics. As such, the concept of ahimsa, to do no harm, is immeasurably profound. Without deep reflection, we innocently, and at times willingly, commit acts of violence, dismissing ancient cultural wisdom towards nature and the preservation of planetary life. Only now do we realize our own depth of ignorance and the damage we are causing through the dominant paradigm. As a further observation of Ahimsa, I've greatly admired heroes such as Mahatma Gandhi, whose revolution of non-violence epitomized for me the notion of Ahimsa as an immensely powerful mechanism for resisting British colonial rule, and which Gandhi himself described as an active force, a soul force of the highest order. When it becomes active with In us, it is intertwined with truth and can work wonders. I believe that that's correct. Religious texts, since time immemorial, have advocated kindness towards others. Treating others as we would want to be treated ourselves is the advice. And yet, thousands of years on, our modern world has heeded little such advice. The powerful exploit the vulnerable. Much of the world would appear to have lost its way. Our world's wealth is controlled by a few. We war and commit acts of violence against humanity itself, including racial wars, religious wars, drug wars, gun wars, wars that render populations poor, violence against planetary ecology, waterways, forests, revered species, violence towards women and children, the aged, those with disabilities, those that are different from ourselves. Violence towards Indigenous people, their innate culture, their language, their customs, their beliefs, lands and habitats. Violence in the extraction of global minerals and resources. Violence to the collective sustainability of the planet and our humanity's future capacity to preserve what we have. What a different world we would have if we followed the Panchayama and the Panchaniyama. Ahimsa alone is to be without harm, harmless to oneself, to others and to all living beings, implying a way of life, protection of our ecology and of nature in all its forms, including humanity. I started to ask myself whether it was possible to be able to do justice to the concept of ahimsa. Is ahimsa attainable? How would the world be if we showed compassion and kindness to fellow living beings, compassion of mind, spirit, and action? And in the last few days, I've seen something quite phenomenal. I was struck that after having had war with Western countries fighting in Afghanistan for the last 10 years against the Taliban soldiers, that their success has implied the Western soldiers' loss, but has sadly left their state in poverty. And more recently, we've seen an earthquake kill thousands of people. The West now has a choice to make, and that is to turn around and to assist people that are suffering as a result of this earthquake and the devastation that it's caused. And I think that it's one of the most phenomenal aspects of human nature, that we can be at war and then we can turn around and have that heart of compassion to help a community that we were at war with. I think that's a great act of humility and kindness that moves us towards the better aspect of humanity and allows us to transcend the lower states of violence. I consider the notion of ahimsa to be very much like a crystal. It aligns with truth and reflects a light from within, and importantly, it illuminates a pathway around us. Inward reflection on ahimsa logically begins with what we ourselves think and say to ourselves, that we look at our conditioning, that we look at our values, our thoughts, what we've been told, what we believe, how it influences us, how we construe our feelings, how we project our samskaras, our conditioned responses. There is, however, a gap between thought and action, like the spaces between the incoming and outgoing breath, where we can be conscious as to the direction and outcome that we're aiming for. Yoga teaches us to cultivate and foster the gap, to question our perceptions, to put the pause button on, the space between the breath, where in the calm of the moment we can change the course of outcomes, deliberate from unhealthy to healthy thoughts, from aggressive to calm, from unconscious to conscious, from victim to an active player that is in control, not out of control. I ask myself, how often do we commit harm without intending, without realizing, without being aware? And how often do we get offended by what someone else has said and done, be that intentionally or unintentionally, allowing us to be heard? That gap gives us a space, a pause in the moment to gather clarity, where we can take charge of the direction between cause and effect, not automatic but aware. Ahimsa is the search for truth. With inner reflection, we cleanse our minds, strip ourselves of illusion so as to act truthfully with integrity for the common good. As in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's dialogue on the battlefield with Lord Krishna is one of procrastination, the difficulty in finding the right action, killing his relatives on the one hand, or defending the rightful entitlements of his family. Ahimsa is not straightforward. Harm, in this case, will ensue either way. Discerning the right path is that inward journey of consideration and contemplation with the higher self. Ahimsa demands single-mindedness, to be atoned or at one with that higher state of being, and fearless of the decision that we discover, moving without faltering, going where our faith in the journey takes us. Ahimsa draws on self-reflection, on svadhyaya, calls on awareness of attitudes. It shines a path of moral truth in seeking to know one's own self. Ahimsa, I would argue, is the wake-up call to refine our attitudes and lifestyle, to become aware of how we serve nature rather than taking all that we can. It's the act of moral discernment in our moment-to-moment decision, either to care or to ignore, either to preserve or walk away, to protect or to pretend that it's okay. Ahimsa is the moral thread in search for the truth. We are free to move against nature, yes, but we suffer the consequences. Ahimsa is the ongoing dance of self-discipline. Tapas, awakening to the reality of our choices and our consequences. Ahimsa is inner and outer kindness. It is respect for self, not passivity, but a deep inner conviction. It's a journey that ignites insight beyond the persona, beyond the roles we play. Ahimsa is a reflection on that place of clarity that observes and knows the steps of kindness to preserve our future. Ahimsa is the hero's journey, the hero who pursues the golden fleece, delivers the light in the darkness, finds balance in harmony within. It is to take exactly what is enough and to share with those that are weaker. It is the cyclical moment of life, death and renewal to be respected and revered. It is the reflection of a pattern language inherent in nature, like waves in the ocean, a gracious regeneration in the forces of nature. Ahimsa is indeed the law of future survival. It shines a light of truth on peaceful coexistence. It is about collective collaboration within our global system of humanity, working with ecology. It is about viveka, discernment of the clarity. It is the story of yoga, searching and finding the pattern and the purpose in everything. Peaceful coexistence is a state of being, a state of inner awareness that allows for collaborative action. It begins with the flame of intention, moves to deep reflection and reverence that ignites the light within and shines throughout all our actions. May peace be with you all. Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you very much, respected Karine ji. We are always honored to have you on board as our board member of United Consciousness, and such a beautiful elaboration of Ahimsa, which is the need of the hour. You mentioned about Honorable Gandhi ji. You also mentioned that the base of Ahimsa is treating others as you want it to be treated. You rightly said that it is an active verb rather than a passive observation. You said that there is a gap between thoughts and action, cause and effect, action and reaction, and that gap should be filled by yoga to take charge and living life in control. You called upon the importance of swadhyaya that is followed by ahimsa. You rightly mentioned that it is the moral thread in search of truth. And so beautifully you concluded at saying that ahimsa leads to a collective collaboration and working with ecology, which is the must for this planet today, and it is the foundation of our peaceful coexistence. So it is a very elaborative, thought-provoking talk on ahimsa. We are so honored that you blessed us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All the best.
On behalf of United Consciousness, I thank Ms. Karine Shellshear for coming onto the platform of United Consciousness. Thank you so much.